In the secluded mountains of eastern Kentucky, about 43 miles from the site that would later develop into Lexington, there's an old copper mine that's been locked away by local officials since 1847. The public documents claim it was shut down because of unstable structures, but the real secrets hidden in those dark passages paint a much more terrifying picture. From 1792 to 1845, three successive generations of the Hartwell family pulled out more than 2 million pounds of copper from those rugged slopes, turning them into one of the richest mining clans in the young United States. However, by 1845, not one Hartwell was left alive to reap the benefits of their riches. When authorities eventually ventured into those depths, what they uncovered shook the foundations of what we believe about how far a family might go to safeguard their hidden truths and the awful sacrifices they made in pursuit of fortune. The copper from the Hartwell mine was exceptionally pure, fetching top dollar in trading hubs from Louisville all the way down to New Orleans. Still, no one could figure out how a group of unschooled workers achieved such high-grade extraction with basic tools. Historical logs indicate that from 1800 to 1840, the Hartwells generated copper valued at what would be millions in modern money. Yet they lived in isolation, seldom visiting nearby settlements and buying only essential items. When government inspectors probed their setup in 1845, they stumbled upon mining methods that weren't supposed to exist for another half-century. Even worse, they found meticulous records of human agony that stretched across 3 family lines. Before diving deeper into the saga of the Hartwell mining dynasty and exposing the gruesome reality entombed under Kentucky's earth, I'd love to get your thoughts. Tap that subscribe button if you're eager for tales that unearth the gloomiest episodes of U.S. history, and drop a comment letting me know which state you're tuning in from. I enjoy linking up with other fans of enigmas from all over the nation. What renders the Hartwell affair so spine-tingling is that all the details I'm sharing come from verified sources like county archives, geological assessments, and preserved letters from the family, which were stored in the cellar of the historic Jefferson County Courthouse until a mysterious blaze in 1963 wiped out most of them. The fire's cause was never satisfactorily determined by experts. The handful of papers that escaped destruction were moved to government safekeeping in such hush conditions that even the official who oversaw the handover didn't learn their final destination. The year 1792 saw Kentucky join the Union as the 15th state, sparking a rush of pioneers keen to stake their claim on the wild frontier. The Cumberland Gap turned into a bustling route for those escaping the cramped opportunity, scarce life back east, all drawn by dreams of vast lands, fresh starts, and wealth beyond their old colonial constraints. Among these adventurers were the Hartwell siblings, Caleb, 34 years old, Silas, 32, and the youngest, Jeremiah, just 25. They reached the Cumberland Gap area equipped with little beyond inherited mining gear from their dad's unsuccessful iron venture in western Pennsylvania, and a fierce conviction that Kentucky's highlands concealed treasures for the bold diggers. These brothers were molded by a tough upbringing, rooted in a lineage of grueling factory work that had gradually poisoned their kin. Their father, Tobias Hartwell, had toiled endlessly pulling copper and iron from Pennsylvania's peaks, inhaling metallic particles until they ravaged his lungs, ending his life at 43. Their grandfather, Ezekiel, had labored in those same pits before him, succumbing to what doctors termed miner's disease at an even earlier age. Their mother, Sarah, perished during childbirth attempting to bring a 4th boy into the world, her strength sapped by constant contact with the dust that invaded their dwelling. This heritage of occupational fatalities left the brothers to fend for themselves amid dire poverty and a familial legacy tainted by ore and rock. Such experiences hardened them into individuals who grasped that in the new nation, riches weren't handed down. They were wrenched from the ground with raw effort and relentless resolve. It also equipped them with deep insights into excavation practices, metal processing, and the toll it exacted on people. They'd witnessed their father tinkering with various recovery approaches, adapting instruments for hazardous settings, and crucially, they'd seen his thorough notes on which methods dispatched laborers swiftly versus those that prolonged their utility for greater gain. Caleb, the oldest, had a keen entrepreneurial intellect that would propel the family's ascent and eventual downfall. His correspondences with vendors in Louisville, now held in the Kentucky Historical Society's collection, depict a figure fixated on accuracy and confidentiality. He could forecast yields, predict commodity values, and broker shipping, deals with a polish implying scholarly training, though no proof exists of him ever stepping into a classroom. His script was neat and learned, his grasp of chemistry and metal science profound, and his familiarity with bodily structures alarmingly thorough for a backwoods excavator. Silas provided the brawn, sturdy and indefatigable, able to endure 16-hour stints in environments that would crush ordinary folk. But records from Pennsylvania's mines hint that Silas had also acted as a supervisor in setups, employing both paid and enslaved hands, honing strategies for overseeing personnel in perilous scenarios. His proficiency in what he mildly labeled workforce optimization would become vital as the family ventured beyond mere ore pulling. Jeremiah, though young, had an uncanny knack for interpreting geological layers and following ore paths through dense rock. This talent, inherited across Hartwell miners, let him spot deposits overlooked by rivals. Yet Jeremiah held an edge over his siblings, a comprehensive diary from his grandfather, filled with digging tactics, chemical recipes, and seeming health notes from 3 eras of Pennsylvania mining. The territory they claimed lay in a basin where 3 streams met, dubbed the Copper Hollow by pioneers for the vivid emerald lines in the bare cliffs. Earlier seekers had shunned it as too isolated and tough to reach. But the Hartwells viewed potential in the barriers that repelled others. The seclusion they craved was perfect for their envisioned enterprise. They erected their initial hut on a crest above the valley, ideally placed to spot intruders. The structure boasted traits excessive for a basic camp: solid rock barriers, slit, like openings doubling as guard spots, and a basement dug unusually deep into the slope, far beyond storage needs. Early visitors from nearby homesteads felt rebuffed and observed that the brothers appeared braced for conflict. The nascent Kentucky wilderness demanded self-defense for prosperity. Disputes often ended in bloodshed, claim thieves roamed freely, and justice could be days distant. In this lawless realm, the Hartwells' innate distrust and reticence proved advantageous, perhaps overly so. They forged ties with indigenous groups, not for camaraderie, but as sentinels against dangers. They employed wanderers and destitute souls for their site, but these hires oddly vanished after brief tenures. By autumn 1792, they'd driven their debut probe shaft and hit upon a life-altering find. A copper seemed so pristine and vast that Caleb's early evaluation promised sustained yields for ages. But this wasn't standard ore. It mingled naturally with arsenic, lead, and mercury hints, yielding superior metal but lethal hazards. Samples covertly assayed in Louisville returned stellar results, yet with cautions about the perilous alloys. The brothers comprehended these alerts intimately, having seen kin perish from akin toxins, viewing this vein as both a boon for opulence and an extension of their ancestral blight. What started as straightforward digging was poised to morph into a labyrinthine, profoundly malevolent scheme. The harsh winter of 1794 delivered the initial stark indicator that the Hartwell dig was deadlier than foreseen, and their reaction would expose the abyss of their ethical decay. In early December, Jeremiah surfaced from a profound tunnel, griping of intense head pains and labored breaths, which his siblings first chalked up to the grueling toil below. Soon, however, ominous blotches emerged on his flesh, beginning at his fingers and creeping upward like an internal blemish bleeding out. Instead of pursuing aid or curtailing his mind time, Jeremiah commenced precise logs of his ailments. His notebook, unearthed years hence, discloses that this wasn't a frantic bid to comprehend his woe, but the methodical tracking of a trial participant for later use. The logs are impersonal, objective, and eerily exact. Day 12, staining has hit the elbow. Shakes in main hand disrupt precise movements roughly 3 hours post-ascent. Respiratory issues peak at dawn. Hunger lessened but present. Symptoms mirror father's last phase but accelerate from dense metal mixes in Kentucky ore. These notations unnerve not merely for their detached style, but for including assessments of how his state impacted output, implying that amid his decline, Jeremiah saw himself as an asset to refine, not a person to rescue. Dr. Marcus Pendleton, a rare learned healer on the Kentucky edge, trekked 3 days to assess Jeremiah in February 1795. His personal diary, found in 1959 amid Louisville Medical College renovations, offers the earliest logged depiction of the Hartwell plight. The junior brother exhibits signs I've noted solely in those handling specific metals and substances. His epidermis displays a unique bluish, green hue starting from palms inward. More alarming are the quivers in limbs and seeming mental fog impairing his reason. Querying their digging habit prompted evasion and antagonism. The senior, Caleb, showed metallurgy and anatomy expertise surpassing mine, posing intricate queries on tox in advance that implied broad prior views. I suspect they're harvesting something riskier than plain copper, and worse, they grasp the perils more than they concede. Pendleton's checkup unveiled a lifelong haunt. Jeremiah's affliction wasn't haphazard or mishap. It bore marks of planned, prolonged toxin contact. The poisoning's blueprint hinted at someone versed in metals and medicine orchestrating doses to heighten impacts while sustaining life for study. But Pendleton's advisories and cure offers weren't merely dismissed. They met fierce opposition from the trio. Caleb especially seemed keener on grilling the doctor about toxin minutiae than healing his kin. The dialogue, per Pendleton's diary, laid bare the family's skewed aims. Offering to transport the youth to Louisville for care agitated the eldest, who insisted on details of the regimen. His inquiries were minutely specific: recovery duration, remedies employed, and alarmingly, if metal damage reversed or endured. Upon noting likely lasting harm from the progressed state, he appeared gratified, not grieved. That's when I discerned this clan sought no cure. They were investigating it. The excavation yielded copper at astonishing paces, amassing fortune quicker than dreamed. But crucially, they gathered toxin impact data they deemed pricier than ore. Jeremiah's woe wasn't a regrettable byproduct. It was intentional testing. Outsiders missed that the veins arsenic, lead, and mercury made each shift a regulated poison trial. The brothers spotted this instantly, and rather than shielding themselves, they crafted their dig to probe long-haul toxin effects. Shifts were timed and noted scrupulously. Meals were calibrated to mitigate or amplify metal uptake. Symptoms chronicled with lab-like rigor. The initial fatality struck spring 1796, Jeremiah crumpling in the mine's abyss. His siblings discovered him seizing wildly, lips and nails a stark blue, black echoing their dad's end. But instead of hasty aid or doctor summons, they devoted key moments to symptom notes before intervening. Jeremiah's demise wasn't tragedy. It capped the opening stage of a lineage, spanning human toxin probe. His parting words, inked in Caleb's log, weren't pleas but findings, sight contracting from edges, metal flavor strengthening, muscles failing in expected order, mind sharp amid body breakdown, suggest shorter toxin spans for later cases to prolong study. They interred him anonymously on the Overlook Ridge, but first performed what they termed a concluding review. Caleb's self-taught skills from Pennsylvania poison cases enabled a rough dissection showing organ metal buildup. His autopsy remarks, later recovered, reflect researchers' coolness over sibling sorrow. Case ended after 127 controlled days. Liver heavy with copper as forecast. Bones lead, marked throughout. Brain tool. Limited but mercury spots in cortex account for nerve issues. Advise longer spans for future. To map advances. By 1797, the pair exhibited like symptoms, yet they'd unearthed another pivotal fact post, Jeremiah, shifting their dig to darker realms. Probing fresh passages revealed signs of ancient digs, rough stone implements and half-carved halls indicating native peoples mined here ages ago. More chilling, bones strewn in depths bore the green tint emerging on their skin. These relics implied the site's toxins killed for centuries, but they also hinted survival via methodical poison handling. Amid fragments, Caleb located full skeletons enduring toxin years, not months. These implied managed exposure let one thrive in the deadly setup, accepting ultimate toll. This reframed their plight, not mere mishap victims, but players in enduring natural culling. Systematic managers profited, others joined the bone heaps. The Hartwell fatalities might have faded into frontier woes, save a 1,823 find casting doubt on all they'd erected, showing their venture far vaster and ordered than guessed. Samuel Crawford, surveying for county lines, happened on an inexplicable site near the Hartwell area. In a gully 200 yards from the entry, he spotted what seemed an old cemetery, scores of shallow pits on the slope, topped by plain rock piles, sans names or dates. The orderly lines suggested prolonged, planned interments, the count exceeding typical dig mishaps or border struggles. Excavating to date for land claims, Crawford's crew unearthed horror defying time. Remains weren't antique, cloth bits, buttons, artifacts pinned to late 1007, hundreds early 1008, hundreds, aligning with Hartwell digs. Worse, many bones showed deformities and mineral marks of heavy toxin cases, copper green, lead brittleness, arsenic joint wear. Most shocking, age and origins. At least 30 of 47 skeletons were kids, some infants, others once strong adults felled by poison. Children's bones displayed chronic exposure patterns, not sudden, implying deliberate dosing over time, monitored till end. Crawford's formal filing was cryptic. His sibling letter in Virginia archives tells raw, unearthed dread in Lexington East Hills. Hartwells, thought to have fled their dig, left decades of murder proof. Infant-child counts hint epidemic or worse. Grave order, bone states suggest planned toxin overload. Years, sealed site, silenced men, but fear its fraction of their valley deeds. Crawford's revelation was mere start. Emboldened locals shared long, buried tales, sketching a Hartwell venture more sprawling and evil than conceived. Martha Hensley, neighboring farmer, spoke of odd mine noises, not dig clangs, but harrowing. Her 1952 unsealed oath heard cries child, like in agony no aid, hours from depths hell's echoes. Husband checked 1802, Caleb rifle, met blamed settling gear, but gear doesn't wail for mom or beg in young voices. Others saw tiny shapes night, laboring, sickly kids beside Hartwell men in unbearable states. Approached, they'd flee tunnels swift, making witnesses doubt eyes. But repeated accounts matched. Malnourished, trembling kids terrified of outsiders. Storekeeper Samuel Wickham noted odd buys. Chains, locks, surgical tools, restraints. Claimed for upkeep, but no workers town. Seen hidden labor. Traveling traders described poisoned youth. discolored skin, shakes, deformities. Caleb called family with inherited ills, but numbers exceeded known kin. Mystery grew, no official ore sales despite output. Copper vanished into economy via concealed paths. Louisville shipping traced matching volumes 1795-1840 under aliases, intermediaries unlinkable to Hartwells, hinting crime syndicates. By 1825, lore made the shut dig legendary, kids warned away, travelers heard pleas underground. Dismissed as myth, but consistent, smells too, decase, wheat with metal tang, forcing indoor seals. Later air tests matched rotting bodies in metal, rich spots. Break through unraveling Hartwell secrets came unexpectedly, showing sophistication beyond rumors. 1834 Louisville-Nashville rail build brought engineers to Kentucky wilds. Thomas Wickham, lead, surveying gap routes, drilled into presumed caves 30 feet down, not natural. Man made tunnels riddling hills, linking valleys in complex web-like buried metropolis ignoring safety. Tunnels boasted vents, drains, supports, engineering clashing with Hartwell's laborer roots, implying hidden training. Inside, side rooms as dwellings, beds in stone, fires, habitation signs. But unwilling, wall rings blood, stained, chains, odd restraints sized varied, for kids to adults. Rooms organized, entry near for strong laborers, deep for ill, sorting by utility, poison stage. Deepest, family logs, hundreds pages detailing crimes. Caleb's hand mainly, later others, 4 writers over time, multi-gen. Logs chronicled vast cruelty, toxin effects, economic life, value calcs. From 1798, Caleb dosed kin deliberately. To gain from mine managing poison, must balance output, survival. Evolved to sinister, patterns in effects, optimizing worker span. Not just kin 1801 on, non-kin recruited, slaves, immigrants, kidnaps, contacts, New Orleans damaged slaves, Baltimore loners, bounties for isolated youth, rail find overwhelmed authorities, decades experiments, hundreds victims, advanced org. Verification, Dr. Heinrich Mueller, Louisville toxin expert, matched logs to research. Hartwell knowledge ahead, anatomy draws, chem calcs, bio insights pre-codified. Mueller traced, Tobias unofficial doc, experimental surgeries. Inherited experiment tradition from industrial zones, Hartwell's networked, trades for subjects from afar, logs 2, 100 plus acquired 1008, 101-1008, 143, low-profile victims, Ekin 18, month adult optimal, copper worth multiples cost. Kids data, rich, elders experiments, letters 1829-1841 to codes, reports, requests, 1841, 23 subjects active, 8 near end, need 15-20, 20-35 age, extended life 22 months, coordinate supplies, implied larger net, similar ops nationwide. Correspondence hinted breeding tolerant generations, mine, born kids resilient self-sustaining force, not isolated, network in industries, possibly gov, linked, deepest turn, termination chambers, sealed crawl access. Chambers, med areas to prolong for data/labor, charts on symptoms/dosages, disposal, cremation, grinding, storage, dozens yearly, horror, ash/bone mixed fertilizer, sold regionally, 300 plus processed 1008, 105-1843, profitable side. Mueller, victims lingered months/years, managed suffering for labor/data. Victims, mostly young, extended survival via techniques. Some conscious end, agonies noted. Op ended 1008, 144, last Hartwells poisoned. Final log, last subject gone, kin failing, experiment success, 400% life extension, no heirs, See Hartwell Roman 3, crisis, evidence suppressed, state/Fed deemed public knowledge disrupt, if copper in infra, fertilizer in farms, techniques in industry. Tunnels sealed, land federal, probes halted. Investigation found similar sites, PA burials, VA deaths, TN trafficking. Halted 1,847, too systemic for exposure. Official, mine unstable, family west. Copper in DC roofs, telegraphs, ships. Wealth and economy, bone traces in soil, site unmarked, federal, guarded, lore now, occasional surfacings, 1987 remains rerouted pipeline, 2003 cavities canceled development. Story questions American prosperity foundations. How many such ops? Erased suffering built nation, victims forgotten, traces in soil/infra/archives. What do you think? More hidden? Comment, subscribe for more dark histories. 5.